Hello, everyone. Thanks to those who have registered for this webinar and signed in early. We have about 4 minutes before we will begin. We will have a full house today, so we are looking forward to speaking to all of you shortly. Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes. Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in just a minute. Hello, everyone. It's the top of the hour, but I see that a number of people are still frantically signing in and going online, so we'll just give it an extra minute. Hi, everyone. It is now a minute after 9 in the UK, and I see lots of people still getting online. We have a full house today, but we will go ahead and get started as everyone is signing in today. So, welcome to today's webinar on onboarding. This is part of AKT's Insight series, where AKT has been an SAP partner for over a decade. My name's Michelle, and I'm the facilitator for today's webinar. A few housekeeping before we begin. All attendees are in listen-only mode. On your panel, you are able to ask questions through the text box. If your computer audio drops during this webinar, you can switch to the phone audio options that were provided into your confirmation email. So, before I pass the webinar to our presenters, let me first introduce AKT to those who are first-time participants. AKT is one of the largest SAP Cloud People Solutions consultancy firms in the EMEA region, with more than 140 consultants in local businesses across 7 countries, including France, the UK, the Czech Republic, Switzerland, and other countries. We are a full-service provider of SAP solutions, and globally, we have run over 300 SuccessFactors projects. We offer our customers a broad range of true HR advisory and consulting and support services, from cloud implementations to change management and end-user communications and trading. We also have a dedicated global team offering the latest apps development and specializing in post-go-live support and optimization of customers' systems. And uniquely, as an SAP partner, AKT also runs the Industry Accelerator for HR tech startups. So, on to today's webinar. Our presenters today are Eitan Bernstein, Managing Partner of AKT's People Advisory Business, Jessica Boyko, SuccessFactors Recruiting and Onboarding Lead. So, over to you, Eitan.
Thanks, Michelle. So welcome, everyone. In advance of this webinar, we asked you all those of you registered to answer a short survey, and many of you have. And I'll start by just, and we'll use some of the feedback that you provided in your questionnaires as part of this webinar. You can see here some data. We have organizations participating that are active in many, some in one country and some in many, and organizations of very differentiating size, from smaller organizations to very, very large organizations are participating. And there's some interesting findings we'll share with you about you and how that fits into what we're seeing as the global trends. One of the questions we asked you in the survey was about, in your organization, do you feel that the onboarding process is effective? And only 19% of those who responded said that they either agree or strongly agree with that statement. And I assume that's why you're all here. That's not surprising. It's very much aligned, and even maybe even a little better than a recent Gallup survey that was held recently that shows that 88% of organizations don't feel that they onboard well. And that's pretty amazing, considering that any of us who have ever worked in organizations, and I assume most of the people on this call are HR professionals, understand how sensitive and how important the onboarding event is. So shouldn't we be doing a better job than only 12% of organizations feeling that they onboard well? And I think this is data that many of you have probably seen, if not these exact sources and other similar ones. We've known for decades how important an effective onboarding process is. This isn't a new idea. It's one of the areas of HR that the investment in getting it right is very measured, there's a lot of proof of a clear return on investment, whether it's in productivity, where we know that individuals who are onboarded effectively are productive faster and more productive overall over time when onboarding is done right. We know that retention is higher, even in the long term. It's the impact of the experience in the first few days and first few months of employment in an organization has a significant impact on long-term retention, not just within the short period, but even in a few years later, it can still have an impact. And it's amazing to look that even though individuals have just signed on to an organization and decided to join, usually a very exciting event, gone through a recruiting process, made an offer and decided to join, that even then, already within the first few days of the onboarding experience, 1 in 5, 20% are already have an experience that they're unlikely to make a recommendation to a friend or a family member about that employer, which is pretty significant, that we've already managed in many organizations to make such a bad first impression to people who have just decided to join. Now, a lot of this isn't new, and many of us have been designing onboarding processes for many, many years. 25 years ago, I feel old saying that, I joined a semiconductor company many of you know named Intel, and I was responsible for onboarding to a new facility for 2,000 new employees. And we think we did a great job. We onboarded in 2 years, 2,000 individuals, built a great process, had a new employee orientation, had a buddy process, and I think many of you in your organizations must have similar things. But why? What have we learned? And is there anything different and new in what we're doing today, or what we're seeing organizations doing, than what we've been doing for 10 and 20 and 30 years around onboarding? I think that's the question that we'd like to try to address in our conversation today. And I think one of the major differences that are significantly different from what they were in the past, or the way we looked at this in the past, is the recent entrance of the concept of employee experience and the employee journey into the way we think and design our processes. Now, employee experience is a big buzzword in the recent year or two, and many of you are hearing it. And it's easy to take it as just hype. But beyond the hype, there's a few really critical things that I think we need to look at and truly understand about employee experience in general, and the important moment that matter that we call the onboarding moment that matter, and the onboarding journey in this new world. And that's what I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about. So when we look at employee experience, we've taken concepts from customer experience and consumer experience and brought them into the world of HR and the world of organizations. But we know that talking about the employee experience is very complicated because it's all encompassing. Our employee experience can be the sum of all touch points, as Josh Burson puts it and is quoted in this slide. But it's really a much broader concept, because our employee experience is even when we're at home at night and thinking or worried about work. Our employee experience is how much time we're spending in traffic jams on the way to work or back. That's part of our employee experience. It's not just the actual activities that we do in work or our interaction with the HR function. And in that sense, it's very hard to design everything that has to do with an employee experience. And so we focus on the employee journey, and specifically on the critical moments that matter, on those events that for most people are really significant. And if we can successfully design those moments that matter effectively, then we can have a real impact on the employee experience in our organization. And of course, the event of joining the organization is a really critical moment that matter. It has an enormous impact on people's perceptions of the organization in a way that's much bigger than the actual time that it takes. And everyone remembers their first day. I think if I asked you each to think about their first day of work at your current job, or even your first day of work at a former job, a year, 5 years, 10 years ago, you'll remember that. Most people remember that date. I always find it very impressive when we interview individuals as part of the design of new onboarding processes, and you talk to people who joined a month ago, or a quarter ago, or a year ago, or even 10 years ago, how vividly they remember their first day, how much both the images and the emotions of that first day come to life when you're interviewing individuals on their first day at work. And that's because this is really an important event that people that impact them very, very significantly. So after investing so much effort in the candidate experience and the recruiting, obviously the next critical moment that matter is the onboarding moments that matter, and how we design that in a way that is a really valuable and positive experience. We'll be talking about designing for experience in some of the next slides, and I want to make sure we're talking the same language when we're talking about designing for experience. Designing for experience is not easy. It's not something that happens after the fact or as a nice twist on the way we build things. It's really rethinking the way we use design principles and design thinking ideas, and put the employee, the new hire, in the center of our design thinking in the way we build a new process. And it's around thinking about the 3 E's as Forrester's model that's presented here put it. So one is any process, including the onboarding process, needs to be effective. And that's not easy. It's not easy to make something effective, to actually do what it's supposed to do. In this case, get someone formally integrated into the organization, effectively doing their job, giving them the tools that they need to be able to do their work, getting them connected to the business processes and to the team that they need to work with. That's the effectiveness. That's actually getting the task done. The second level on top of that is to make the process and the experience easy. That is even a little harder. And designing, because things aren't difficult, so things are very available, so things happen quickly, so things are simple. We know how hard it is to design complexity out of processes in many organizations and create a real ease, design for ease and simplicity for the individual. But those two aren't enough to design for experience. When we're looking to design for experience, what we're really looking to do is design for emotion. Through what we're trying to do in our design, in any process, in an onboarding in particular, we're trying to understand how the new employee is going to feel throughout this process and how different touch points in the journey are going to create a positive emotion, and how we can avoid creating negative emotions of concern, of fear, of confusion, which often come with an onboarding process. And one of the things we need to realize is that we're living in a world where the consumer experiences that we all live through outside of work, such as with these organizations, are really influencing our expectations as employees. And if things are so digital and so easy and so simple and so personalized outside of our work, we have come to expect that that's the way things should happen everywhere. But when we enter into organizations, we often find that things aren't as simple and digital and personalized and easy and transparent as we may find them in our consumer experiences outside of work. And this is really impacting the expectations that have changed. So it's not only that our thinking has changed, the expectations of our new employees entering into our organization have also changed dramatically because of what's happening in the outside environment. So if we take all of that and we ask, okay, so what do we do with that when we look into our onboarding process, which is our discussion for today? So let's talk about how we design onboarding processes in a way that creates a great experience for the new employee, and how organizations do this as a best practice. I think a key element, which you'll see throughout our presentation, is having a customer-centric design. And a customer-centric design and using design thinking principles is around really thinking about the individual and her experience in the process and her emotions in the process. So like we do in design thinking, we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about Ella. And Ella is a persona that we've created to talk about design thinking for this case. But in your organization, one of the first things you'll want to be doing as you're thinking about improving your onboarding processes is selecting the persona or two, maybe three, not too many, that represent the type of individuals and the type of jobs and the types of geographies that you're hiring into, and thinking through what they really experience and how they see this. So I'll take Ella. She's 32 years old. She just recently accepted an offer as a sales manager at an organization that she knows she's actually a customer or a consumer of. And she had a wonderful candidate experience. She's so excited about joining the new organization. The process was transparent and digital and simple, and she's all revved up to be joining this organization. She's so excited and looking forward to doing this. And then starts her onboarding process. And our experience in our onboarding process, like in many of the organizations that we see, was not so great. So she was very excited when she accepted her offer. But as the onboarding process started, her feelings toward the organization have started to become more complex and more negative. It started with the fact that she was asked to fill numerous forms in paper and sent things across and signed documents. Some of them even had information and documentation she had already submitted or answered about in her recruiting process, and didn't understand why she needs to do all this duplicate effort. And then things went quiet, And she didn't hear from anyone prior to her arrival, and she knows it's coming up in a few days, and that's a little scary. And Ella is a little worried and concerned about what that means. On her first day, she arrives at the reception desk and asks, "Where am I supposed to go?" And she's not on any list, and no one knows what she's supposed to do. And the receptionist said, "Where are you starting to work?" And she said, "Where the sales." She says she's coming to be a sales manager. So they pointed her in a direction and said, maybe you should contact someone that you know who you were in touch with in the organization. It's a little scary, and Ella's very concerned. Wait a minute, no one's here to greet me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So she calls the contact number she has, and an HR administrator she had been in touch with in the recruiting process comes in and joins, and she's suddenly relieved to see a smiling face and be excited about joining. And that HR person comes to takes her to the area where her team is and introduces her. And at last, real people I'm going to be working with, things are better. But she discovers that her office is not ready. She doesn't have the equipment she needs. She doesn't know where she needs to go to pick things up. She's sent on a wild goose chase around a building which she's not acquainted with and needs to ask for people that she can't find. And it's a very confusing experience. A teammate on her teams noticed her and says, "Oh, we're going for lunch together. Come and join us." And that is relieving. But she's still uncomfortable. She doesn't know who these people are and what she's supposed to do with them. Um, she bumps into her hiring manager, or direct manager, who says hi, but apologizes that she won't have time or he won't have time to talk to him today, and maybe tomorrow, but we'll see. And all this is really a very frustrating experience. And as the days go by, although she's already settled in and started to work, she's had a few good training sessions, and it really feels like she's getting to understand the organization. She realizes she's missing knowledge and skills that she needs for her job, and she doesn't know where to find them or how she can get a hold of them. And there's all kinds of technical questions like her health insurance program and others that she's not getting the answers she wants for. And she's getting pretty frustrated about her role. If this story of Ella sounds familiar, it's because this is based on interviews that we've done with many individuals in the organization. And I'm sure that if you interview employees who have joined your organization after a month or 2 months or 3 months, you hear similar stories. And we know that when this is an experience of a new employee, then this has meaningful impact on the new employee's experience and how they view the organization. So Allahu was extremely excited about coming to the organization, starting a new job. Her engagement is now dropped. She's not completely feels she's not completely oriented and doesn't really feel comfortable that she really knows what to do in order to carry out a role. It's taking her much longer than she expected to ramp up and feel that she's contributing, and that's frustrating to her. And she's having doubt questions whether she's made the right decision to join this organization. And that's a pretty tough outcome to a decision that you've invested so much in as an organization. She was so excited to be joining. And this is actually very, very aligned with exactly what you all said in your pre-webinar questionnaire. So these are answers of your questionnaires that are very much aligned with the research we're seeing outside from other places. So you've said, many of you answered pre the webinar, that only 1 in 4 of you answered that in your organization there's continuous communication that's informative and pleasant with the candidates. Only 1 of you said that you think that a candidate in your organization will say, "I received all the information that I need throughout the process." Only 1 in 5 of you said the process that individuals in your organization would say that the onboarding process is fast and simple and easy. And only 1 in 7 of you would have said that a new employee in your organization feels that every interaction with your new organization is engaging. That's very frustrating, and that's where we want to think about how we redesign the process and automate it and improve it to make it a much better candidate experience. So let's talk about how we do that. So one of the things is looking through every one of the steps in the process and asking what can be done to improve the experience, and how do we look at this through what is the feeling that we want the individuals to have in every one of the steps of this process. So if the initial pre-arrival stage is one that has a lot of administration, a lot of paperwork. It's how we simplify, automate, make much more digital a lot of our application process of completion of forms and other things, and how we use the pre-arrival process to really drive acquaintance with the organization, have regular contact, complete a lot of the onboarding process that can, in some organizations, happen only after day one. We can actually do beforehand. And since many people are very excited before their first day at work, they actually are willing to spend and invest a lot of time in learning about the organization and learning about the job between when they sign and they actually join. PepsiCo, for example, in order to ease up their pre-boarding activities, they provide access to a portal where the individuals can start learning and reading about the organization. And their recent research has shown that individuals spend up to 9 hours of their time pre-boarding, reading and learning and trying to find things out about the organization. That's incredible individual experimentation and learning that people are investing in your organization. Think about how much more knowledgeable and excited they can be if they've invested that time pre-boarding to actually come to the organization. How do you stay in touch? Sometimes organizations have a pretty long waiting time between when they've signed and joined. Is there ongoing communication with the new hire, or is it now I'm left in the dark until the first day of work? How do I connect individuals on my team, to my manager, to my buddy, if I'm assigned one? All those areas that can be done pre-day one and create a much more positive feeling toward the beginning of work. A lot of very, very important things happen around day one. Day one is an incredibly meaningful day. And again, many of you, if you stop and think about your first day of work, it's something most of us remember. And it's designing the first day of work to create an incredibly positive experience is very, very important. How is the workspace organized on the first day of work? Does someone come and greet me when I meet in the office? Is there something that everyone comes at the same day together? Many of the best practice organizations like Google and LinkedIn and many other examples we'll show in a second, organizations that have an orientation day on the first day, because it's a way of putting structure, of seeing you're not alone, of meeting other new employees. So I have a peer group that I can be part of, I can meet and go through the same experience. And so it's very easy to structure the design around the new day in a way that we ensure that most people will have a great new day. I was recently visiting Google in Silicon Valley, and a very senior executive that was working with us apologized 5 times during the day. He kept looking at his watch, and he said, at 3:20, I have to leave no matter what, because at 3:30, I have to meet my new employee who started today and pick him up from the new higher orientation, because it would be very unpleasant for that person if I left them alone even 5 minutes and I would be the last person picking up the new employee. Just like a parent would feel about picking up their little child on the first day of school or in kindergarten. And I found that so impressive of the attention and the dedication of understanding that someone is going through a very important experience on their first day, and how that is something that will be meaningful when the manager is there to pick them up and wait for them and take them to have a cup of coffee and have a discussion. So all those things are organizations design. And just a few, visual examples. What's the experience of the equipment and the setup that I have in my office? These are pictures from a few organizations who do a particularly good job in making sure that when I arrive, I feel that I'm wanted, that everything I need to get going, not just the physical equipment, but the systems I need access to, and all those other things are available to me. And organizations that start the day like LinkedIn does, with a morning of orientation and senior executives that come to meet, organizations like Twitter that start the first day with breakfast with the CEO if you're at that site, or other senior executives, or organizations like IBM who provide a whole platform to support your initial days at work. And one of the questions that many of us have been asked in the last few months with COVID-19 is what's happening these days? How are organizations dealing with this? And it's really impressive to see some of the creativity that some organizations have done in the recent months in enabling onboarding, despite the fact that we can't bring people to the office. How to set onboarding kits home to the individual, and how valuable and impressive that is for a new employee to get the sense that they've joined an organization. Philip Morris, for instance, or part of the orientation process, actually sent pizzas home in some of the countries to employees, and they have a virtual pizza lunch replacing the real pizza lunch that new employees used to have in the regular days. LinkedIn has moved its orientation to a totally virtual orientation process and built it in a way to make it still dynamic, still have individuals meet each other and learn, stretch it out a little bit so it can be done virtually effectively. So very creative and wonderful things that actually this period has brought organizations to think about. And then we need to think about post day one. So the onboarding experience doesn't end on the first day of work. It actually is a much longer process. And how we create positive experiences throughout. We know that regular one-on-ones with managers are really, really critical during this phase. And if a manager is not able to provide enough of that, then regular one-on-ones with a buddy. And most organizations that do this well, 70% of organizations that are ranked as doing good onboarding have an effective buddy system, which can be a replacement or a completion to a hiring manager's time in supporting the new hire time. And as well, making really information available. And some of these examples of these organizations have really, really structured systems to enable information, to get asking questions, to have a mentoring system and a coach, to have a very structured plan and information available so that I go through my first 90 days in an effective and efficient way and a great experience. And it doesn't even end in the first 30 or 60 or 90 days. Many organizations are looking beyond that and defining onboarding as a longer process. For instance, Zappos, after a year, and give people the opportunity to make a decision and leave Zappos if they've discovered it isn't for them, and actually take $2,000 to make that decision. So if it doesn't work, if it's not a good fit, then sometimes it's the right thing to do is to not continue. Twitter continued to have a happy hour with senior leaderships over time in order to strengthen the relationship and build a connection to senior leadership. And Kellogg provide a significant framework of information and data and training to enable individuals to continue to develop and build their capabilities throughout the initial period of their work. As you're going through this and designing your onboarding process to be the best fit, to create the best experience, one of the important things is that it's not a one-time event. It's really, really critical to measure and listen and continuously improve. And that means both measuring the operational aspects of this, whether the time to actually get onboarded and getting all the equipment, the percent of individuals who complete their critical training, the number of people who complete the things that they need to do in order to meet all the people that they need to meet. Those are all operational data. And even more important is the experience data. How do people feel about the organization they joined? And how do we take the feedback from these both operational data and experience data and feed them into continuously improving our onboarding process? Now, if you're not doing it, you would be surprised, some of you maybe, to learn that someone else is doing it. This is from a site called Comparably. There are many other, in different countries and different locations, other types of social media and platforms that are collecting information about people's perceptions on onboarding. This, I pulled out General Motors just because I think no one registered from General Motors for this webinar. But on many of your organizations, you may find people that are ranked externally to a public site their experience around onboarding. So Comparably ask questions about how positive was your experience at your current company. How well was the company prepared for your first day of onboarding? Was your direct manager helpful with onboarding? And this is part of what the people and individuals are looking at outside your organization. And so you definitely want to have at least this, if not much deeper understanding and listening of your new employees and their experiences, so that you're not surprised by these external feedback about what's going on in your organization. And if you design this well, if you really think about these touch points and build in the continuous feedback, both operational and experiential, then you should be able to move and draw this curve from one that may have uh, uncomfortable situations, worrisome situations, to one that overall, in most cases, has been designed with moments that matter, that create a wow effect and create a very positive event that will drive engagement and bring additional people into the organization. Now that's the new employee journey. But one of the things I think you all realize is that they're not the only constituents in this process that you need to design for. We asked you in the pre-webinar survey about the hiring managers or the onboarding managers. And many of you have said that the experience of the hiring managers is something that you need to improve on as well. The hiring managers in your organization, only 1 in 4 would say they know where to find information to support the onboarding process of a new employee. Only 1 in 7 of the hiring managers in your organization fully understand what they need to do to successfully pre and onboard a new employee. Only 1 in 8 have full control and visibility of what's going on in the new hire process. Has the person completed all their onboarding things? Is all the equipment they need? Have they finished all their training? And only 1 in 10 of you that responded feel that the process from the perspective of the hiring manager is fast and simple and easy. That's pretty horrible. And so one of the things to think about is how you design your new onboarding process. So it's not only good for the new hire, but how it's also a valuable process for the hiring manager. How do you make information available to them? How do you automate the process to them? How do you give them clear structure, guidelines, and simple tools to track where things are going, to support their work so they can dedicate their energy and effort not to the technicalities of the onboarding process, but really to support the onboarding of the new employee and her experience in the organization. And so it's not just about thinking about the new employee, but also about the hiring manager. And the last thing I'll share with you is when we asked you about all the challenges you have in your onboarding process, then all of you, or many of the people responded, said enhancing the candidate experience or the new hire experience is obviously critical. And then the hiring manager experience. But you've also, as we see in many other surveys, looked at other things that are very meaningful, such as reducing the onboarding workload. Internally in organizations, there's a lot of individuals working on onboarding activities that are often very, very manual and create a lot of work. Shortening the onboarding cycle time so that technically it's a much faster process. Having better metrics to do that. Ensuring compliance that in many, many countries requires a lot of information, documentation, training, and other things. And streamlining the equipment issuing in the process so individuals can be effective first. And all those look at the HR and IT and other functions in the organization that also need the support in a redesign of an onboarding process in order to be successful and effective in doing this. And so as you're looking to redesign your onboarding process, it's to focus on the new employee experience, not forget the hiring manager experience, but also think about the effectiveness and efficiency of all the supporting functions and how you can automate and simplify the work for them. How we do that, I will pass on back to Michelle and on to Jessica to show how you can use success factors to drive many of these best practices.
Thanks, Aitan. So throughout, you've heard that the experience of the onboardee, the manager, and the HR function are so key during the onboarding stage. And your responses to today's pre-webinar questionnaire echoed this. So before Jessica jumps in to share with you how success factors enables these best practices and positive experiences, let me quickly show you where today's participants are in their success factors journey. So from your responses today, or in advance of this webinar, 54% of you are currently using success factors, 47% of you have Employee Central, and 33% have the recruiting module. Going onwards, 16% have onboarding 1.0, and 23% of you are considering onboarding 2.0, with a very small population of you indicating that 7% are starting onboarding 2.0. So you're not alone in any stage of the SuccessFactors journey, and we're now happy to share with you some of the highlights of how SuccessFactors can enable your onboarding experiences. And for those 7% who have onboarding 2.0, this will be a fantastic refresher, as the thing about employee onboarding is there's always room for improvement. So over to you, Jessica.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Ethan. And I will start sharing my screen.
Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. So before we deep dive in the special features of the model of the onboarding tool and also how to support what Ethan has presented, it will be important to understand a little bit about how the onboarding process works in SuccessFactors. As you can see, the onboarding process will start once the recruiting process is completed, once the candidate accepts the offer, or maybe in other cases when the candidate already signs the contract. This will be the moment when the onboarding process will be triggered. But a moment before the onboarding really starts, before the candidate and what I call the onboardee really starts we start collecting the information, we will have I call it like a transitional step. It's the review new hire data. This step basically was created in order to review the data map from the recruiting to onboarding. The review, of course, can be optional, and in other situations, it can also be triggered only if there was an error in this integration, in the mapping between the recruiting to the onboarding. And then it will allow us to fix the data before the real initiation of the onboarding process. The reason of these steps and why it's so important is because we will see that onboarding process relates a lot on the personal data of the onboardee or the organizational information. For example, his organizational information in the job requisition, to which department he's going to be recruited, and so on. So in order to trigger the business rules that will support the process and its localizations, that's why we are doing this review new hire data. Once the review new hire data is completed, this is when we finally initiate the onboarding process. As you can see from this point, two paths are initiated. The first one is of the new hire of the onboarding, and the second one are the new hire tasks that are under the responsibility of the hiring manager. And basically, this brings us to the personal step. The personal data collection step is based on the employee central data model, meaning that the onboardee will be here requested to fill his personal information that later we are going to map into his employee central profile once he will be converted to an employee. Example of information that we will find here is his personal information, his emergency contacts, his dependents, his national ID, and more. The additional data collection, the second step that we see, is the second step to be filled by the onboardee. And it's used in order to collect specific information to support the onboarding process. Here, for me, it's important to mention that this information that we collect during the additional data collection will not be mapped to Employee Central. And a great example for additional data collection is the need to collect, for example, from a production employee, his uniform size in order to prepare it to his first day of work. Also, we will see that the additional data collection is connected to our next step, what we call the documents flow. These steps actually generate and allows the onboardee to sign on documents, and basically becomes the third step of the onboarding process for the onboardee to fill. We will see in continuation of the webinar, we will talk more about the documents, but basically the onboardee is requested here to sign on documents, and those documents can be auto-populated from information that we already collected in the personal data collection and the additional data collection. So once the onboardee signs the document, he will be moved to the manage pending hire, unless he has some compliance forms to be signed. And probably some of you already know the manage pending hire from EC or from the recruiting module. But from this point, the onboardee can be created as an employee in the system. And once the start date will arrive, the system will run a conversion job to convert the onboardee into an employee. In parallel, as we said before, we have two paths when we initiate the onboarding. So in parallel to all the steps that the onboardee is requested to follow, we are going to see that also we have the part of the hiring manager. All the tasks that are assigned to the manager and he needs to do as part of the onboarding process. We're going to see in a few moments also what are those tasks, but those tasks they are redirected or to the hiring manager and also to other participants if you would like to. The new hire tasks are also known as the onboarding program. And I normally say that it's a group of tasks that the hiring manager is requested to perform. As I said before, we're going to see them in a few moments, but as some examples for them, it's like to set goals for the onboardee. So when he becomes an employee, to assign for him a body that Eitan was talking a lot about, and assigning a body for him to start being familiar with his team, write for him a welcome message before his first day of work and more. So one thing that I want to say here that I think it's important is that if we are already looking at the process, it's very important also to mention the flow of the data between the modules and understand that with this new module, with the onboarding tool, the data flows better and easily, improving the experience of the onboardee and also simplifying the hire of an employee in the system when creating his employee record. Thinking that an employee, basically, he starts his journey as a candidate and then as an onboardee in order to become an employee. You will be able to see that during this journey, in each one of the modules, we are basically all the time collecting information about the candidate, about the onboardee. We have also information about the process, like the job requisition information. And all this data will flow from the recruiting to the onboarding and then finally to the Employee Central. So basically, by having these three modules integrated between them, you will find that you don't need anymore to request twice and three times for the same information from the onboardee, because simple as it is, the data will flow much more simple, and it's like one flow from the beginning till the end. Oh, sorry. Now, the onboarding homepage. It doesn't sound the most important thing to start a presentation with, but we were discussing till now, and Ethan was talking a lot about the onboardee experience, and the homepage is exactly the place where we want to bring to the onboardee the extra value and transform his onboarding to something else, basically to take it to the next level. Every onboardee will go through the homepage when logging to the onboarding platform. Actually, he will log in already to SuccessFactors as an external user. So the homepage is built with tiles, as you can see. And we have two types of tiles, the standards and the custom tiles. The standard tiles that we're going to see in the homepage are the to-do list that will show all the actions that are pending to him to complete. So what we were seeing before, his personal paperwork, the additional paperwork, and also the documents to be signed. The second type of the standard here are the ones that are reflected from the output of the hiring manager task. So for example, when the manager sends a welcome message, the welcome message will become part of his homepage. When the manager is scheduling meetings, when the manager is telling him what to bring in for his first day of work, to where he needs to go in his first day of work, links that we are sharing with the candidate, useful contacts like the body or other recommended people, all of it will be in one place for the candidate to have this direct access to it. And beside the standard tiles, SuccessFactors allows to create custom tiles. Those customized tiles, those tiles can be reflected to specific population using business rules. So for example, every division will have, for example, a different video or a different link in the homepage that only the future employee for that division will be able to see in the homepage. And now imagine an onboardee logging into his portal and seeing in the homepage a video about his division. with real employees, maybe explaining about the experience of working in the organization. He will immediately start to feel more connected, and this is what I mean by taking the onboarding homepage to the another level. So to summarize here, the homepage is your best agent, your best representative during the onboarding process. Utilize it. You need to utilize it in order to engage the new hire, the onboardee, and to share with him relevant information that will make him feel informed and welcome to the organization even before his first day of work. The next topic is the onboarding tasks. And I like to say that even if the tasks are actually part of the hiring manager or other participant tasks, and even if some of them look like simple tasks, they are very important for the onboarding experience. Every one of the tasks here will have an impact on the onboarding experience. As we mentioned before, most of these tasks will be reflected to the new hire in the onboarding page. The onboarding program is the group of tasks used by the organization for the onboarding process, and you can set specific programs for specific population based again with business rules. So for example, different onboarding programs based on the department of the onboarding. Now, the onboarding dashboard that you're seeing is also the place where the manager can track after the onboarding process, track after the status of the onboarding steps, and also on the status of other tasks assigned to groups, to the other participants. With the monitoring, he will be able to have full control on current statuses and take actions according to it. So for example, to nudge another participant that is overdue with his task, for example. And if we discussed before, and also we saw that one of the elements that most of you want to improve is the involvement of the hiring manager in the process, the onboarding dashboards represent the tools that will help you to achieve that empowerment and his involvement in the process. And as said before, if you have a manager that is engaged to the process, that understands what he needs to do, so probably it will also be reflected on the onboarding experience. Now we are going to start to see some of the tasks that the module provides, and we are going to check. I'm going to explain about each one of them and also how it can impact the onboarding experience. The first one is the welcome message. The right welcome message, it's basically you will have the option to send a default or a personal message to the new hire prior to his first day of work. The new hire will receive a notification. For every task that basically the manager will do, you can trigger a notification to allow the onboardee to know that there was an action that happened, and he will be able also to log in from the mobile, okay, or from his desktop. He will be able to log in to the onboarding platform, and he will be able to see there the welcome message. Now, you will use this task in order to create a more personal welcome message to the onboardee, in order for the onboardee to get that warm message from his future manager and to feel that they're really expecting him to come in his first day of work. The second task that I think is very important is the schedule meeting. So one of the scary things of the first day of work is that the new hire never knows what to expect. And at least this is how I felt sometimes in the past, that I come to a company, a new organization, I don't know what to do, to who to talk, what will be my day like. So with the onboarding 2 task, you can schedule the meeting so the new hire will know what to expect and who to meet. The meetings will, again, they will be reflected in his homepage, but he will also be able to download it to his personal calendar. Honestly, I'm very happy to have something like this in the system. And also, Ethan was explaining and sharing to us when we saw Ella's first day of work, her frustration, how things could be different for her if she knew what to do and what to expect. So again, the schedule meetings, if you use it wisely, it will give your new hires a different experience on the first day of work. Now, the assign a body, another task for the manager. The assign a body to the new hire in order to guide him during his onboarding period. You can add an introduction to new hire explaining who is the new body, and also add a note for the body to be aware that he was assigned as a body to a new hire. The new hire will be able to see the body in the homepage tile, as we saw before, and also the notes added by the manager. And this is the type of information that is very important for the manager to share with the employee. Normally, the employee knows the manager before the first day of work, but he never knows until he comes who is going to be his mentor, his buddy, the person responsible for his knowledge transfer, for example. So this allows him to understand what to expect. Again, we were talking about the onboardee experience and the expectations of the onboardee. So it will allow the onboardee to know who to expect from each one of his buddies based on the explanations of the manager. And again, I believe, and if I take it personal, again, from my side, if I will know who is my buddy, I will probably already start searching for him in my social medias and maybe trying to contact him and creating this environment of work, again, before my first day of work. And then my first day of work will be less scary because I already know my schedule because I got my meetings from the manager, and I already know who is my buddy, who is going to be my mentor in this new journey. The next task will be the set goals. Using the goal management module, the hiring manager can assign goals to the onboardee prior to his first day of work. For example, you can create a plan of 30, 60, and 90 days after his start date and continue to track after his goals after he becomes an employee. One of the things that I think here that the organization will need to understand, or they will need to decide on an approach of how the goal plan will be used for the onboarding, because I think that we might have here two approaches. The first one is to set the same onboarding goal plan that is used for the employees currently in the year. And the other approach is to set a special onboarding plan for onboardees, something that is more related to their onboarding process. For example, as I was mentioning before, the goal plan with categories like what he needs to achieve in his 30 days of work, then on the 60 days, and then on the 19. Of course, that in order to have the set goals task, so you will have the prerequisites to have the goal management module in your success factors. The next one is the request equipment. This allows the hiring manager to request specific equipment needed by the new hire for his first day of work. It will also allow to request multiple equipment. Okay, so you can request laptop, you can request a phone, you can request a desk. And the idea behind this task is that you will have here an API available in order to integrate between the equipment request task to your ordering systems, and then basically reduce the amount of system that the hiring managers need to go and during the onboarding process before the first day of work of the new employee. You will start, basically, the idea is to start the ticketing from the success factors and not from the other system. Now we have other tasks that I think they will be nice to be mentioned, like, for example, the recommend people. The recommend important people to the new hire. The new hire will be able to see people recommended by the manager in the homepage tile, very similar to the process of the body, but he will understand that he's not his body. So, for example, the manager can start presenting the team, can start presenting important people, important persons in the organization that he's going to meet in his first day of work. So, for example, let's say the floor secretary will be waiting for them in the first day of work in the door, so they can already present. You can recommend links, useful links for the candidate for them to see in the homepage. You can also share with him what he needs to bring in his first day of work, his ID, he needs to bring his passport, and also you can share with him information about where he needs to go for his first day of work, where is the location, if you have transportation information to be shared. So you will also have those as tasks for the manager. The next topic is the onboarding documents. Today, a big part of the first day of work of the new hire is to fill and fill and fill and sign and sign and sign documents and forms. In Onboarding 2 module, it allows you to create a kit of documents that every new hire needs to sign and fill based on different parameters. So again, business rules is another player here, because you can set those kit of documents depending the location, depending the grade, depending any parameters from the organizational information of the new hire. You will be able to redirect to them the correct documentation. Now, for the signing, you will have two options here. So you can use the SAP signature, which is a homegrown product by SAP and does not need any additional license. And this product can be used in the onboarding module now to collect signatures from the manager, but also from the onboardee. And you can also have integration with DocuSign. Those are the methods for the documents. Now, the last topic that I do want to raise here, and it's not a task, it's the integration with Qualtrics. Because I always say that planning a good onboarding plan, engaging managers to have successful process, giving the new onboardee the feeling that we are waiting for him in the organization, and also simplifying the process is the main goal with the onboarding module. But it's also very important to understand that all these plannings and all the efforts in building the process are well received and are also effective as we expected when we planned the onboarding module. So part of the solution will be to run an automated survey like 30, 60, and 90 days after the onboarding. And for that, we can use Qualtrics, which is integrated with SuccessFactors, in order to understand the overall experience of the onboardee, but also to identify the places that maybe we need to put an extra effort and improve the experience that we want to onboardee and managers to have. And some examples, as you can see, some questions that you can ask is how well you understand your job role and responsibilities of your job, how satisfied are you from the training that you have received for your new role, and many, many other questions. There are also so many features that SuccessFactors and Qualtrics provide with the integration, but because of the time, we cannot go deep into this item. But of course, if someone would like a demo, so you can contact us and we can show you how Qualtrics and SuccessFactors are integrated. And with that, I will finalize my part, but of course I will say that if any one of you will have any questions about what was presented, so you can type them on the chat box and we will be replying you shortly. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Eitan. We received a number of questions. Unfortunately, we only have 2 minutes left and we won't be able to cover them all, but maybe we can cover one or two. The first question that came in, Jessica, does the solution include notifications and can we customize them?
Yes, the solution, which is interesting, the onboarding to module, it will come with a set of standard notification. It's around 45 notifications for the onboarding, crossboarding, and offboarding, with the default content, but you still will have the option to customize them, so you can edit them. You can also custom the design of the notifications to be more branded to your organization, and you will also be able to create more notifications besides the one that come already with the system.
Great, thanks. Is EC obligatory for onboarding?
No, so EC was mandatory when onboarding was just released, but from now you can integrate onboarding too with an external HRIS. The only thing is that you will need like a minimal set of an employee data model in order to record all the information to be able to integrate to the other system, but it's not a requirement anymore to have onboarding too.
Fantastic. How can new hires access to the platform if they are not employees, if we are using single sign-on?
Okay, so as I was saying before, the onboardees, even if we are creating them as users in the system, we are not creating them as employees in the system. We are creating them, the system creates for them a different type of user, which is onboardee, that in the end is an external user. So they're going to have an access to SuccessFactors portal, and they will receive the option to reset a password. So they will use passwords in order to connect, and the SSO it's not relevant for the onboarding, even if you are using it in your organization.
Okay, great. We do have a lot more questions online, but as it is the top of the hour, we'll close this webinar now. If you posted any questions today that we were not able to address, we will send you email responses to those questions shortly. So with that, thanks to Eitan and Jessica for taking time today to present. We will also follow up this recording. We will also follow up this webinar with the recording, as well as the survey to hear your views. And with that, we hope you have a good rest of the day and a great week. Stay healthy, everyone, and thank you for joining. Goodbye.